What connections do you have with the Swan River?
My family connections go back a long time because my grandparents came to Bassendean in 1912 and they lived close to the river then, so as a family we've always lived near the river. Where I live now is probably 150 yards from the river, so it's very, very close. So physically there's a connection there, and my wife and I walk down the river every day.
Do you enjoy living in Bassendean?
Well, I must do, I think, because I've lived there for 82 years one way or another. But where I am now, I've lived for 60 years in a different place in Bassendean. Yeah.
Were you born and raised in Bassendean?
Basically, my wife and I were born in Guildford, in the same place in Guildford, which was a house converted into a little hospital just after the last war, or the World War II, and we were born possibly in the same room in Guildford, which is nearby. We had lots of fun in the river. We had lots and lots of fun in the river, and dozens and dozens of kids in Bassendean learnt to swim in the river, mainly at the Point Reserve, as I said, because in those days lots of people didn't have cars, they couldn't go to the beach, so the Point Reserve, dozens and dozens of kids would be down there swimming all day long, and into the evening there was a light at night down there. You could swim, so lots and lots of kids learnt to swim down there. Like when we were kids and used to play in the river and get up to a bit of mischief. I hope you kids don't get up to mischief, but we had a lot of fun in the river. I had a friend that lived on the river. His house was on the river, and we used to swim across the river, and there was a vineyard over the road, and we used to pinch the grapes. When I say pinch them, we only borrowed them, but we'd swim over there and swim back with a few grapes, and when we bit into them, they were terrible because they were wine grapes, so I'll never forget that day. And another thing we used to do, not me, but some of the kids used to go down to the traffic bridge that goes across between Guildford and Bassendean, climb up there, and then wait till the Guildford Grammar rowing kids come by, and they're rowing kids, and do bommies and rock the boat. Some kids were naughty in those days. I hope kids aren't naughty like that these days.
About the nets and the mullets, where did he used to sell them?
There used to be two people, one an Italian man, Mr. Ree, and his mate used to put a net across the river down near in Ashfield, down a small section across the river there, and he used to catch mullet at a certain time in the year, and he put them in the back of his car with a lift-up boot and take them round, these were mullet, and take them round and sell them round the local area on a Friday, because in those days people used to eat fish for religious purposes or religious purposes. Fish was eaten on Friday, so he used to deliver mullet out of the back of his car on a Friday. So my mother used to wait until the fish arrived on a Friday, the mullet. Well, things have changed over the years. The things I used to do was swim and fish, but now it's mainly to walk and look at the birds. Lots of interesting birds, because we go what we call down the Ashfield Flats, which is down in Bassendean area, and we have seen in that area 92 species of birds over 40 years.
Do you have any wishes for the Swan River, or what would you want it to become?
My wishes for the Swan River is firstly, we're so lucky to have the Swan River, and we want it maintained as best as possible. I'd like to see the banks retained better, and that means money being spent to retain the banks a bit and try and stop as much pollution going into the river as possible. But the river is not only the river itself, but the river includes the wetlands and the banks and all the growth along the banks, because the wetlands alongside are very important for turtles and things like that, and habitat for birds. So I'd like to see all that retained.